What's going on, everyone? It's Mike back again, and me and John are here to talk about Motherwell.
I hope your mother's well after I ploughed her last night. I'm telling you now.
Oh my God!
Sorry.
You were meant to say something subtle, John. Jesus. Wow. Okay. Well, there's your intro, guys. What is going on, everyone? It's Mike back again, and Everton did indeed plough Motherwell 6-0 at Goodison Park today. John, what was your standout from today's performance? Because obviously we don't get to see it, or we haven't seen any highlights yet. However, you did see who the goal scorers was.
It just proves, I mean, no disrespect to Motherwell, but they must have been really poor if Beto and Maupay are getting 2 each. The other 2 scorers, Jake O'Brien, again on the score sheet, 2 games, 2 goals. And I hope this is a thing and a sign of things to come. We don't know whether it was same sort of goals the other day or, did he win a header in the box? Was it a free kick? Was it a corner? Everton have released nothing. I'm hoping they do release something on YouTube later. Highlights from today's game. And Harrison was the other goal scorer. Yeah. I think he's going to be a player. We spoke about him today on the phone, Michael, and from what you've seen of him and from what I have in the pre-season up to now and what we've heard about him and the way the manager spoke about him, I think we've got a real player on our hands now. And I just hope that he can continue this and be in and around the first team this season, bring them on off the bench if we need to. Give these players a chance. We didn't see enough of Dobbin. We've had players in the past who we've let go. Ellis Sims is another one. We've got to keep hold of these players and start keeping hold of them now if we want this club to push forward. New stadium on the horizon. Looks like there's some good talent coming through now. We've got to change the way this club's run and selling our young stars like we have in the past. Keep hold of them for another 12, 18 months and give them time to progress, because we done it with Branthwaite. We sent him out on loan and look at the player he's become. So from some of the kids that we've seen playing pre-season, it finally looks like we've got some youth coming through, which it's been a long time coming now.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're absolutely spot on. Harrison Armstrong has looked he's looked a revelation when we've seen him. He's looked really, really good. He's looked comfortable, capable of carrying the ball. He was defending against Preston as much as he's scoring today. When he come on, and I think he made his debut for Everton, he gets a shot off early in the second half against Sligo Rovers, I think it was. He just looks a direct player. He reminds me a little bit of Ross Barkley. And, Ross Barkley broke into the Everton team at 16 years old and was starting games of football. So I'm not saying this kid should be starting games of football. I'm not saying that.
Wayne Rooney done it.
Yeah, I'm not saying
he's not a Wayne Rooney, by the way. I'm not saying that. But
no, but
he was given a chance, and it looks like this kid's going to be given one. Who knows?
And that's what he needs, John, in my opinion. You've literally just hit the nail on the head. We have had players who have came into these teams over the years and they've looked like they're capable. We had that Kieran Dowell. He looked like he was capable. We had Luke Garbutt. He looked like he was capable. We've had the younger lads. I know we signed the one, but what was his name? Brendan Galloway, young lad, comes into the team, ends up playing League 2 football, I think he is. We've had these younger players that have looked like they've got something about them, and they just haven't either been given the right opportunities or given the chance to progress or had enough first team minutes and been in and around the quality of the squad. And I hope that we've started to get it right with these younger players, because we have seen a lot of younger players in pre-season and some of them have impressed me, John. The right back, the left back, they're both quick, both got a bit of skill, both capable of going forward. This Harrison Armstrong, again, very comfortable on the football, prepared to beat a player, can go backwards, can go forwards. And that, all of a sudden, it gives you more options when the going gets tough and teams maybe we'll go up against Brighton, and Brighton will be aware of James Garner. They'll be aware of Ladrissa Garner guy. They'll be aware of, they'll even be aware of players like Jack Harrison and Guy, because they'd have seen them. They'd watch the games. They'll be like, right, well, this kid can do this kid can do this. They're not really going to know much about Harrison Armstrong or some of the younger lads, because they just don't see them in Premier League and competitive football. And you can have all the scouts in the world, but as we found through players through over time and throughout the years, you can miss top talent when you're watching under 23s games. Jamie Vardy ended up in non-league football. Ollie Watkins 10 years ago was playing for Weston-super-Mare. They're now playing in the Premier League, or Jamie Vardy scoring goals for England, etc. Top goal scorer winning a Premier League title. So we do need to, as a football club, look at ourselves and go, do you know what? He's a talented player, and put these young lads. It sounds a bit weird, but we almost need to put these young lads on pedestals, because the reason I say that is you'll see Chelsea get young players and be able to sell them for 20 or 30 million. Now, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but when was the last time you saw an Everton youngster who hasn't played minutes of football being sold for 20 or 30 million? Doesn't happen.
I think a lot of clubs, Michael, they bring these youth players through, and if they smash it at the club that they've been brought through, right, it's like it becomes a saleable asset, and it doesn't cost you anything, and that's where Everton have lost out, and that's why we've struggled with PSR for years and years. You look at some clubs and they'll bring a player through the ranks, and it didn't cost them a penny, but they go and sell them for 30, 40, 50 million. It's a saleable asset. Going back to what you've just said, I think Sean Dyche has got to change his stance on youth, because we all know he hasn't given youth much of a chance since he's been at the club. Yeah. He's always stuck with his tried and trusted, and, well, I wouldn't say trusted because some of them have been poor, but, the older heads. We've seen Lewis Dobbin in and about it, and mentioned him before. He's gone from Villa to West Brom today without playing a competitive game for Aston Villa. So I think what we've got to do now, if Sean Dyche is going to change his stance on youth, we have to give them a go, and not give them a go. Well, because we've seen it in the past pre-seasons. We have brought kids in and we've given them a run out because we've been struggling for experience, because we've had injuries or they've been in European competition, so we've been short on numbers. And I just hope that's why he hasn't used these kids, because we did have players away in the European Championships. We've got a few injuries. And then when the season kicks off and these players start coming back, we don't see the likes of Harrison Armstrong again. I just hope that isn't the case, because that has been the case with Sean Dyche in the past. But yeah, I think when you see a talent, and listen, we're not paid what Sean Dyche is. We've all got opinions on players. That's what it's all about. But when you see a talent, and we've seen this with Wayne Rooney, we've seen it with Ross Barkley, we've seen it with young players in the past. When fans see a talent and then they go missing, you start questioning the manager again. Give youth a go, because as you quite rightly said, they're unknown quantities to a lot of teams in the Premier League. So they're going to come up against these teams and they're not going to know what to expect. Give them a go. Put them on the bench early on in the season. Make a space for them on the bench. If they need to come on to try and change a game, because with that Harrison kid, it looks like he can change a game if we're chasing one. It looks like he can come on and make things happen. But also, if we are 2-3-0 ahead, bring them on for experience then as well. Got to mix it about with the young kids. Don't throw them in at the deep end. But for the likes of him and a few other kids that we've seen this season, in pre-season, just give them a sniff. Just give them a little run out. And if it's too much for them in the Premier League and they come in and they look like a fish out of water early on, you think, well, maybe they're not ready for that step up yet. Because bearing in mind, we've only played Sligo, Preston, Motherwell,
Coventry.
And Coventry.
Salford.
Yeah. So, but it's a big step up for these kids. So give them a chance, because you're never going to know. You're never going to know if you don't throw them in. Not the deep end, not starting against Brighton. I'm not saying that. But if they need to come on to make a change to the game, or if we're ahead in the game and we're comfortable, give them a run out, see what they can do. If we all see, and Dyche sees, they're probably 2 or 3 months away from, being consistent around the first team, fair enough, but he's give them a crack of the whip. And that's all we ask.
The one thing I was going to say as well is, we've spoken about right backs to replace Coleman for years. Now, look, I'm not saying that we've got a replacement for Coleman, because I don't know if we have. Coleman's been a fantastic servant to Everton Football Club. We all know that. But isn't it funny that we've got players like Stanley Mills, who's been injured, hasn't played a minute pre-season. We've got, I think, is it Dixon or Nixon? Really rapid right back, absolutely explosive. We've got Patterson, we've got Ashley Young, and we've got Coleman. We've got 5 right backs. Yet we've only got Mikalenko and the young lad who's sort of coming pre-season. I can't remember his name exactly, but he's also looked good, and it's good that we've got players who you can almost mould. You know, like the younger players that you can also ask to, that Stanley Mills at Oxford really impressed me. And he impressed me last pre-season. He was a player that I was kind of looking forward to seeing a bit of. But, I know he's got his injury and whatever, and that's fine, and he'll recover. But there is some talented youngsters in this Everton team. And one of the comments that me and you really took offence to about probably 6 to 8 months ago, maybe a bit longer, was when Sean Dyche come out and said there is no talent in our under-23s, and you look now and you think,
what was he watching?
It was either what was he watching, or was he doing that to give these players a kick up the arse? Because I don't know how it's come about, but I'm excited about the players that I've seen. Do you get what I mean?
Do you know, when you were talking about that, then what Sean Dyche come out with the comment and all that, my first thought was, has he done that to give them a welly up the arse? And if he has, then it's worked, because I think it's been at some time now, Michael, it's quite a while now that we have seen a bunch of young players coming through where we're all sitting there thinking, is this the next right back? Is this the next left back? And is this the next Wayne Rooney? Listen, these players are a long way off Wayne Rooney. And before people start putting in the comments, you're getting ahead of yourselves. It's not that we're getting ahead of ourselves, because these players might be struggled with the big step up in the Premier League. But what we're trying to say is, I think it's been a while since we've been excited by the youth that's coming through. They may not be ready for the Premier League. They may not be ready. But from what we've seen, and I know it's against lesser teams, we know that. But I think it's worked in Sean Dyche's favour with the comment he made that these players have now stepped up, as if to say, do you know what? No youth coming through. We'll show you. And if that's the case, then they're not just showing him, mate. They're showing Everton fans as well, because there's an excitement development coming through the team. And you mentioned there, we've got 5 right backs. We're struggling at left back if Mikalenko gets injured. But what I like about the team now, if you look at the team now, there's youth, but there's experience. We brought Jake O'Brien in, and he can work alongside Tarkowski. We've got the young kid who's been playing at right back. He can learn off Seamus Coleman. Mikalenko was probably one of the most improved players under Sean Dyche for me. We've got the left back who's been coming in before Mikalenko was back. He can learn off him. So there's youth, but there's also experience. And I think now we have to start working like that. We have to keep that mould within the club now, because we've been suspect of not doing that in the past. He's stuck with his tried and trusted, and he's had the experience on the bench most of the time and not involved the youth. Now, the only way the youth will get experience and progress and improve is by being in around these experienced older heads. And if that's what he's done in pre-season, now in the training and the games we've seen, then something's obviously been done right and it's working.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it as well. And look, I've been quite critical of Kevin Thirlwell at times. I've actually been critical of every director of football we've had under Mashiri's reign. But it is funny that when there's no board, there's no directors, we seem, and I'm not getting ahead of myself, okay? We imagine we could have an horrendous season. but it does seem like we're doing the right things. It does seem like we're signing players that we need to sign. And the only one that surprised me is Jack Harrison. But when you look at the way that he may play, Jack Harrison actually kind of makes sense. So I look at the way that we've sort of done all of that you've just mentioned, the youth and experience, and almost we've got that in every single position now. Tarkowski's got Branthwaite and O'Brien. You've got Michael Keane and Holgate. One of them probably won't be at the club at the end of the window, but the other one, you've got two lots of experience, one semi-experienced, and one that's got Premier League experience, but not absolutely tons of it. It's just exciting. And then you go into midfield. You've got James Garner, who's got a season in the Premier League under his belt, the Idrissa Gana guy. But then you have got young players, like O'Brien, Timmy Rabunen, young, talented players who appear to be doing the right things early on. And then it's exactly the same on the wings. It's exactly the same in most positions. And I do look at it now when I go, the only area, and we actually alluded to this yesterday, is the strikers, because I'd argue that the youngest striker out of the bunch has had the best pre-season. We'll talk about the goal scorers today. Beto got 2, which I'm not going to sit here and slag Beto off. We all know our opinions on Beto. He's got the right mentality, but whether he's good enough for the Premier League, he's still on the fence. He scores 2 goals against Motherwell. Are Motherwell a Premier League team? I don't know. Being honest, are they a Championship team? Probably. But I'm trying not to be disrespectful to Motherwell. But Neil Maupay scores 2 goals today. Both of them have outscored Calvert-Lewin this pre-season in one game. And you do sit there and you think, for players like Chimiti, who had started to have a good pre-season, it's a bit of a shame that he's got injured, because he almost would have stood out.
Apparently he's out for 6 weeks. I think the 2 strikers that you mentioned there, the likes of Neil Maupay and Beto, listen, Neil Maupay is not good enough for Everton Football Club. Beto's not good enough, in my opinion, but we're not going to sit here and slag players off. But what you get with Maupay and what you get with Beto, Michael, is they'll break a sweat and they'll close players down and they'll run and they'll work hard. And unfortunately, you're not getting that from our number 9 striker. He's not working hard enough for me. He doesn't close players down. He doesn't chase the ball back. He doesn't bust a gut to get into the box. What you will find, whether they're good enough at it or not, and in my opinion, they're not, Neil Maupay and Beto do exactly what we want Dominic Calvert-Lewin to do. Because if Dominic Calvert-Lewin done that, he would score more goals. A lot of Everton fans are getting really peed off with Dominic Calvert-Lewin now looking at social media. He's not busting a gut. He's not working hard enough. His heart's not in it. It's blatantly obvious he doesn't want to be there. But yet you've got 2 strikers who aren't going to score us enough goals in the Premier League to push us on, who are actually doing more than him, and that's the problem for me.
Yeah. Beto's obviously been linked with a move away, so scoring 2 goals today won't do that any harm. And we've been linked potentially with a bit of a swap deal with El Brahim Traore, who is a player that Everton have looked at before. I think they were quoted quite a significant fee as well. So at Atalanta, clearly rate Beto, which is fine.
I do, all day.
Yeah. Are you sitting there thinking, when you look at the transfer window so far, are you thinking that a striker's the only one that's missing? Or if the transfer window shut tomorrow and we didn't make any more signings, what would you score the transfer window out of 10? And obviously, guys, put that in your comments as well, because I'm interested to get your score out of 10. But if the window shut tomorrow, no additions any further come in, the squad is the squad as of right now, what do you rate Everton as? John?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably give it a 6, 7, to be fair. Yeah. We have been linked with some players who we didn't manage to get over the line, but I think when you look at some of the players we've brought in, they're an upgrade on past transfer windows, on players we've brought in. Tim Ibrahim, I think, however you say it, I'll just call him Tim because I can't say it. He's looks to me like he's probably one of the best signings we've done in a transfer window for a long time. I think I'm really going to take to this kid. I said it on here a couple of weeks ago. I was excited about getting him anyway, and we got him. Lindstrom scored a great goal the other day. Give him a bit longer. Jake O'Brien looks like he's going to be a monster. If you break that down to them 4 players that I've just mentioned there, that's a very, very, very good transfer window. If it slams shut tomorrow, as you quite rightly say, I'd be disappointed that we didn't bring a striker in.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I agree with you, right? And I'd probably give it a 7. The striking issue for me, if you don't resolve that, then you sort of, again, we're going into it with a spoon. You know, we've got all this great stuff, but then at the end, it's just tip. You know, it's just not blunt. And I would have liked the striker situation addressed. I would have, because I still don't. You know, like I've made the comments about Mulpay, you know, it's very obvious he doesn't want to be at Everton. You know, he hasn't communicated since he's been back at the club. He was very quick to slag off the club. He was quick to slag off the fans. People are forgetting that this is the same guy that made a comment about being appreciated by fans, and, you know, being at a club that appreciates you, it shows what you can do. If I remember one of his comments on Twitter or something like that. So this is a player that doesn't want to be at the club. Me as a fan, I don't want him to be there. So I don't like the fact he's played any minutes in pre-season, but I get it because you want to move him on. So I get it. But the Calvert-Lewin thing for me, you know, Calvert-Lewin could have moved in this window. You know, we have had offers, we have had links. You know, he was linked to Newcastle, and we were trying to swap him for a 19-year-old winger for £33 million. He ended up being sold to for Brighton, I think it was. In what world is Calvert-Lewin worth over £15 million? I'm really struggling to see what Everton are doing with him.
I think Calvert-Lewin comes across to me, if he was chocolate, he'd eat himself. You know, and for the wages he's asking for, and for the length of time that the contract being on the table, and then you mentioned something the other week and you broke it down. I think over the 8 years he's been at the club, he averages something like 5-6 goals a season. And we've spoke about this, so I don't want to go over it, but he doesn't warrant the wages he's asking for. Now, Everton do need to lower their asking price. I think it's 25, 30, 35 million, whatever they want for him. He's in the last year of his contract, so they do need to lower the asking price. If they can lower the asking price, you've hit the nail on the head when we've had this conversation off air. Offer Calvert-Lewin to Newcastle and ask if we can have Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson, I guarantee you right now, scores more goals than Dominic Calvert-Lewin this coming season.
He does. Yes, he absolutely does.
Right. And Callum Wilson, with the players we've brought in and the way Sean Dyche wants to start playing, scored goals for Everton Football Club.
Mate, Callum Wilson is fundamentally a 1-in-2 striker. He suffered with injuries, but even when he's played less games than Calvert-Lewin, he outscores him. But it's Newcastle, and Newcastle want Calvert-Lewin, really. You know, I don't think the fans were blown away when they were linked with him. And look, I just wish the forward position almost was addressed first.
Yeah, I think the reason why it wasn't, I think Everton probably been hoping, Michael, that Calvert-Lewin still signed this contract.
Yeah, and the problem I have with that is you're relying on a striker. Now, don't get me wrong, Calvert-Lewin, as a player, in the last 6 or 7 games last season, he looked like the old Calvert-Lewin. He looked good, he looked strong, he looked physical. And against Liverpool, he won every header. He battled for every ball. And he really impressed me in that game. And I looked back and I went, yeah, we've got Calvert-Lewin back. But it's almost like we fast-forwarded 3 months. And this pre-season, I don't know where he's gone. I don't know where he's gone. And bearing in mind, he's been playing against teams, you sort of describe them as lesser, but, they are teams that are in a lower league than Everton. I do sit there and think, how have you not performed at that level? And then you look at the chances that he's had, the one-on-ones, which, let's be honest, he's never been good at one-on-ones. But you look at the situation and you think, he's never actually been a top number 9. He's had one season where he was a top number 9, and he was pushed by Carlo Ancelotti, and he was pushed by Richarlison in the same season. They were sort of fighting to be number 9 at Everton Football Club. And I sit there and I think that's the one area of weakness at Everton. And I wonder that if this takeover was sort of almost done or was close to concluding, or, going into the last week of the transfer window, I wonder if they would have gone and signed a striker, and you would have sort of a bit of a mass sale of strikers from Everton.
I look at it and I think, you mentioned Dominic Calvert-Lewin. For the last probably 6-8 weeks of the season was the old Calvert-Lewin. We've seen him pre-season. He's gone back to what he was like earlier on in the season. My take on that is, towards the end of the season, he was playing for the move. The move hasn't materialised. Now he's stuck at Everton again in pre-season, and he basically couldn't give a shite. That's the way it's coming across to me. He played for the last 2 months of the season. He played for the move.
Yeah, I mean, and that's very plausible. It's just a shame. It's just a shame because this is the same Everton team that have supported him through his injuries, and they give him the chance very young. He was leading the line at, I think, 22 years old at Everton Football Club. At 21, he was very young, and it's disappointing. I'm interested to see who he starts against Roma. I really am. I'm interested to see if he starts Beto or he starts Louis. Because if I was picking as of right now, I would start Beto.
I think I'd start Maupai before both of them.
No, but that's just, I can't go back to that. I can't watch that. Honestly, I can't watch that. I'd rather stick you up front.
Put Michael Keane up front.
Mate, I'd rather start Michael Keane up front. At least I know that he's somebody that can get a shot off, and it will go towards the goal. It's just the one area, and I think overall, if I talk about pre-season and I talk about the window as a whole, am I happy with pre-season? No, not massively. I think the results have been pretty poor. I think we've conceded a lot of goals, and I don't buy into this whole fitness for 3 or 4 weeks and then tactics for 3 weeks. I don't buy into that. I don't like that. However, we have scored 9 goals in 2 pre-season games without conceding them. So on the flip side of that, if Everton put in a good performance against Roma, you would argue that the only massively disappointing game is probably Coventry, because let's be real, they played us off the park, and that was embarrassing.
Yeah, by far the better team on the night. They look like the Premier League team.
Yeah, and I can't even say that about Salford, because in the second half at Salford, it was all the kids. All of the kids played against Salford in the second half, whereas, as I say, with Coventry, there wasn't that excuse. I'm interested to see how we play against Roma. I'm interested to see how we tactically set up. We'll obviously do a match preview for that probably Thursday, but it's a game that, it's a tough game because Roma are a good side. But I just hope we put in a decent performance, and if we can keep a clean sheet and score a goal or something, I would be quite excited going into that Brighton game at home at Goodison Park, I must say.
I think that the team he picks on Saturday, I think the tactics he picks on Saturday have got to be close to the team he's going to go with against Brighton, because it's the last pre-season game. The fitness should be near enough there now, so he should be working on the tactical side of it now, which he said he was going to start working on. But I think the team you see on Saturday is going to be close to the Brighton team, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, there's no breaking transfer news apart from old news that Everton had a £23 million bid rejected for Willy Gnonto, which is why they moved on to Jesper Lindstrom. I think that would have disappointed a few Everton fans because I think a few of them were hoping to get both. I think you might actually be in that camp, but I honestly think the takeover might have scuppered some of the plans in this pre-season because I think at one point it did look like this was all going ahead and all looked very positive, and now we kind of don't know where we are.
It's gone very, very quiet with the takeover. Just want to reiterate on something you said about 5 minutes ago about Kevin Thelwell seems to have done well this transfer window. I know you've got to move on and that. And you say it looks like he's being left to do his job. And I think the reason for that is because obviously Moshiri really doesn't want to do anything with the club now. He's not bothered anymore. And I think it's blatantly obvious that the money that we've spent in the transfer window is the Onana money. So he's being left to do his job. Sean Dyche is being left to do his job. Obviously, we've saved money on wages with players at the end of the contracts. And as I say, the money coming in from Onana. And you just look and you think, if only they would have been allowed just to do their job in past seasons gone by, would we have been in the position that we have found ourselves? Because Moshiri's letting them get on with it. He doesn't want anything to do with the club, as I say. And obviously it's working because they brought some really good players in, which I'm excited about this season.
Yeah, John, I completely echo it. And look, Kevin Thirlwell, as far as I understand, is in the last year of his contract as well. I think it'll be interesting what direction the club go in once there is a new owner, certainly from a management perspective and a director of football. But, this Everton team, in my opinion, is not going to be fighting relegation this season. This Everton team is going to be looking more up than down. Even if there is a small points deduction for this stadium costing, I'd rather them just do it early. If there's going to be a point or two or three or whatever it is, just give it us early so we can get it out of the way. But I am definitely excited that this is the last season at Goodison Park. There's a lot of people that are going to, cheer and support the Blues, and the atmospheres I feel are going to be great. So I am excited, and I honestly think like this season could be a really big building block for something really exciting with the young players we've got in our team. I'm really, really positive about my football club for the first time in a long time. And I know some people will say, well, Mike, they've had a rough pre-season and we haven't got an owner and all that rubbish. But I am, for some reason, I'm incredibly upbeat and I'm incredibly positive, and I do think we're going to win the lot, John. I really do.
I don't know about that, but listen, again, I'm normally the upbeat one and stuff like that, but I just want to take it step by step. And what excites me this season, Michael, is, as I said before, and I said this, we've got experience, but we've got a bit of youth coming through. We've got players who look hungry now. You've got Jack Harrison, who's come back again on loan, who's going to want to prove a point. You've got Lindstrom, who's come in. You've got Ndiaye, who's come in. You've got Jake O'Brien, who's come in. So we've brought some young players in who are going to be hungry to play week in and week out and show what they can do. We haven't really had that in seasons gone by because 9 times out of 10, the team's practically picked itself week in, week out, with the same faces, even though they've been poor the week before. Because of the size of the squad and the quality of the squad, we've still had to go with them players who were poor. Now we've got players who can come in and take their position. That's what excites me.
Yeah, completely agree. Right, guys, we will leave it there. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. 2 videos in the space of 2 days, over half an hour long. That is quality content. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe button now. Do it. Press the fucking button. And me and John will be back on Thursday for the match preview for Everton against Roma. Peace.